So good morning. I'm Jim Hutsinpiller and I'm with Pay Northwest. This is going to be a little bit different. Oftentimes we hear about death by PowerPoint, right? I don't even have a PowerPoint. This instead, with me, you get things a little bit backwards. So we're going to talk and I'm going to take a lot of notes and we'll write a lot of stuff down and then I'll put everything together and I'll send you a PowerPoint just with everything we've talked about. So hopefully my goal for this day is that each of us, all 5 of us, get 3, maybe 4 things that are valuable to us that we hadn't thought of before, or maybe a little refinement on something. Hey, yeah, I've heard about that, but never really thought it through in terms of how it might apply to me or my organization. And hopefully there's some value there. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So I put together an agenda, and I have to keep going up and down with my glasses, so don't mind me. My optometrist would love me to get progressives, but I'm worried about what they'll do to my golf swing. It'll put my head in some awkward position when you see the ball. But I'll start. So I'm Jim Hutsinpiller with Pay Northwest. My role at Pay Northwest, if you look at my business card, it says Employer Resource Advisor. It's a fancy name for sales rep. I have a long, extensive background in HR, benefits. You got those cards at moo.com.
Moo.com.
Moo, great deal. Yeah, they were less expensive than standard cards and they're the double weights.
That's very nice.
So check out Moo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Let's see. So I probably hold the record for the longest period of time to get an undergraduate degree at the University of Washington. I started college in 1981 and I got my undergraduate degree in 2004. So it took me 23 years. Now I'm also one of the few people that you'll meet who got their master's before their undergraduate. So that's another wrinkle.
I didn't know you could do that.
Apparently if you finagle and lie really well, you can. So I did. I got my master's in 2002 and I got my economics undergraduate in 2004.
Oh, that's great.
So there's my surprising moves. So let's talk a little about employee engagement and kind of what it means.
You know what? Why don't we all slide down?
I think you guys should. Come down here, be with the rest of us. Bring the chocolate.
Come on, Peter.
I'm in with priorities.
So what does it mean, an engaged employee? Involved.
Participates,
Good. Yeah.
joins in, that's participating too.
Have you had an experience where you ran into somebody that maybe surprised you and when you were a customer of something? And you thought, maybe you didn't think, oh wow, that person's really engaged. But maybe you thought, wow, that was great. Okay, I got one for you. So, because I've got lots. That's
Okay.
part of my job here,
I was
right?
gonna say, give us an example.
Always have a story. So I worked for Nordstrom for 5 years, in my younger years. And at one point, late in my career with Nordstrom, I was running the ladies' shoe floor in Spokane. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was the manager, so I was out watching the floor, you know, handing out numbers and doing the thing. And a lady came in to pick up her dyed shoes for her daughter's wedding the next day. And it turns out that the sales rep that had worked with her had messed up the dye job. They put the wrong colors in. Lady was upset. She was from Richland, Washington, which everybody knows where Richland is, right?
Middle of nowhere.
So she got mad and stomped out and headed back to Richland
Without shoes.
without shoes. I heard about it, promptly loaded up every pair of shoes that was in our inventory in her size. She was a 13 AAA.
Wow. That's
long
hard.
and skinny.
That's real hard to
You
find.
loaded up both sets of shoes.
Yeah, it wasn't both. So I was driving this little Volkswagen Scirocco at the time. I filled up the entire back seat and the trunk.
Wow.
I took down about 50 pairs of shoes. Now some of them were butt ugly, but some of them were very nice. But I took every single pair of shoes in her size. And so I showed up at her house in Richland about an hour after she got home with all these pairs of shoes. And I said, ma'am, we did a terrible thing. I am so sorry. I have every single pair of shoes that we have in stock in your size. And we'd be very grateful if you would pick one pair and have them for the wedding. And of course, at no charge. I didn't get paid for doing that. If anything, I lost money because I was off the selling floor, so I wasn't selling anything. But it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of the story.
Cannot get better advertising than a complaint customer who's satisfied.
Right. So that, at
Best
that point in my
advertising
life,
knowledge
I was engaged, in my opinion. I think that was a very engaged moment.
Yeah.
So that might be a little over the top. But
Was that because you were at Nordstrom you did that? Because of their policy of always satisfying and it was part of the culture?
it was part of the culture. I was the only one that would do it. Nobody else was going to do it. It wasn't like somebody told me to do it. It wasn't like the store manager said, well, geez, Jim, you really ought to do this. I just did it. Security was a little surprised when I walked out with about 60 pairs of shoes. They're like, what are you doing? And I explained, and they said, oh, well, okay, I guess that's all right. But that's an example of engagement, right? Somebody going above and beyond. What would be an example in home landscape?
Well, let's see. Somebody volunteering to work on the weekend when we're
Good.
not
Yeah.
particularly open on weekends, but sometimes you just have to push through.
Yeah. So kind of going the extra mile.
Yeah.
Good.
Something like that. Selling a job when they're just there on site doing something else.
Nice.
I find that pretty intense. I love that.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause
so
that's,
you-
that's somebody who's plugged in, right?
Yeah, and knows what we do and can potentially speak to the customer and sell something. That's fabulous. And just
Yeah.
doing it on his own.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Think of it, and like you walk into a retail store, and sometimes the clerks are there's three of them standing over here, and they're all talking to each other, and you can walk around for a while
That's
and have
my,
nothing happen.
And they
Right?
just keep on chatting.
Yeah.
that's my biggest irritation, man.
Yeah, these
Yeah.
people are not engaged.
No.
Best Buy,
Just in
Macy's.
What about? Hello, Paul.
Well,
What about a restaurant? Right? Have you ever been in a restaurant and asked your server what they recommend or what's good,
Mm-hmm.
and how do they respond?
Usually they have a recommendation.
Usually.
But the ones that don't, the class go, oh, everything's good here.
Yeah.
And you're going, okay, you're either not looking at the menu and going, okay, what are the most expensive things on it that I can push? Okay, I got it. You know, come on, but that's part of it. At least it's engaged. Or, hey, our special is awesome. Go with this special over that special. You know, and they're
Okay.
telling you an honest opinion, and they've tried things.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool. That's great. That's what you're asking for.
I like that. My dad is 93 years old, and he always asks the server, he said, "Oh, what do you recommend?" And I sit with him, and then I tell you, 4 times out of 10, I hear either everything's good, or I don't know, I don't eat here. I've actually heard
That's
that.
awful.
Actually, I had a stockbroker talking to me one day, and somebody that I've known for years, and we were talking about the market. He's trying to sell me to become his broker, and I go, "What stocks do you own?" I'm not in stocks. I'm in real estate. And I sort of looked at him and I went, "I don't want you as my broker. If you're selling me stock and you're not in it."
Yeah.
So tell me about your real estate investment trusts.
Exactly, that's great. So this concept of engagement transcends what we just normally think of, right? It's pretty all-encompassing. So I think we can all agree engagement is being present and participating and understanding and thinking outside of oneself, right? Going beyond that box of being at the Gap and talking to my friend about what we're doing this weekend while this person wanders around and could really use my help. That sort of thing. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about recruiting and hiring. So, sorry Paul, here's an agenda. And Paul, I explained to everyone before, I'm, as you know, somewhat backwards from most people. So we're gonna have a discussion and I'm gonna take lots of notes. I'm gonna write things down and then later, probably early next week, I'm gonna send everybody back a PowerPoint with all the discussion points.
Kind of grading notes?
What's that?
Grading notes?
No, not at all. Are you kidding? You guys are grading me. But let's look at that first topic. So how do you find candidates? How do you find employees?
Depending on what you're looking for. I think
Wow.
there's different ways to find employees, but it depends on what you're looking for.
I think that's good, but let's talk
I'm
about
looking for
how we
great
find
employees who will work for free.
Yes.
College and high school students.
So how do we find them?
Advertising.
Advertising.
Referrals.
Yeah, one.
Yep, word of mouth referrals.
Let's talk about, so referrals.
LinkedIn.
Let's break that out a little bit, and I'm gonna go down here and say social marketing, or social media, and we'll do breakouts on that. Referrals. So where do our referrals come from?
Friends.
Friends, good.
Neighbors,
Actual
countrymen.
Lend me your ears.
What was that, Paul?
Actual employees. Like
Yeah.
existing employees.
Employees, good.
Professional peers.
Peers, good.
The Chamber of Commerce website.
COC. What about customers?
Yes.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get employee referrals from clients.
I did too.
I'm gonna say clients. I think some of these are interesting. The friends, the employees, maybe the clients. But I put little question marks on these, because what do you do if one of your employees refers somebody to you and they suck?
Oh, that happened a lot last year.
Did it? It's awkward, right?
Yes, it was, and I just said, now you know why not to refer your friends. They're no longer your friends. That's what happens. Don't do that again.
Well, and sometimes, right? Sometimes, I mean, people are motivated by all kinds of different things. But I really got to get my brother-in-law out of my basement.
Oh, yeah, that.
He needs a job. You need somebody to work. Oh, he'll do great.
But you still got to go through the interview process.
You do.
still
And
gotta
we're going
make
to talk
that
about how
decision.
you pick them a
Yeah.
little bit. But this brings up more ramifications, especially on the friends and employees side, because if you don't hire that person, how do you talk to the person that referred them, right?
They just weren't right for the job. I mean,
Depending on the
'Cause-
person, that might be fine. You might be able to walk away from it from there. But
Is it okay if I bring that a little closer?
oh yeah, absolutely. Just leave me a little room to wobble in between.
No.
Yes.
Well, I thought that it was just my bifocals.
No, it's me. And I have terrible handwriting. So I have two sisters in my family, and they're both doctors, and I have the worst handwriting in the family.
I used
apologize for
I've
that.
taught graduate
Missed your
school,
call.
Yep.
and I would tell my students, A, if you can't read something, let me know, because the handwriting's terrible, and B, I don't get graded on spelling.
Well, I've got a last name Hutsinpiller. Usually I can spell okay. It's one of my few strengths. Anyway, so that's kind of an interesting wrinkle on these ones. But that referral as a source of employees, that can be tremendously powerful for a lot of reasons. Because one, it's free, right? It doesn't cost you anything, at least no cash. And two, you are likely to get pretty good candidates. Because the people that refer you people are people that ideally want to see you succeed and want to see the person they're referring succeed. So there's a nice mesh there, or can be. Social media, you said LinkedIn, right?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Facebook.
Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah, now Indeed,
Well, that's more of a,
that comes up here in advertising,
Yeah,
yeah.
and maybe Craigslist.
I would just call it an online recruiting
Okay.
is what it really falls under.
Does anybody advertise in the paper anymore?
No. The only thing that's in there now, because we actually still get it, is cars. And that section has also gotten a lot smaller.
Okay.
But the online recruiting has taken away all the newspaper money.
More of the death of print.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. What else? Social media, LinkedIn, Facebook. I suppose maybe, do you use Instagram?
Yes.
Okay. That might be a good
Oh,
spot.
yeah, and I just used it for that.
Okay.
I forgot about it.
Yeah, you think it's a platform, right?
Yeah.
And so the people that you probably post a lot of pictures of your work on Instagram.
I do.
So people that follow them on Instagram and see the pictures are more likely to know other people that are interested in that. Me, I'm sorry, if it doesn't have a golf ball on it, that's not there. But
Okay.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
So Instagram, that could be a good one.
I'm gonna say organizations.
What kind of organizations? Tell me what you're thinking.
If, what I'm thinking is, in your case, if there is a horticultural organization, you could post something within their site
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
or newsletter.
Okay.
And so I see that as another area, just organization,
Yeah.
based on what you're looking for or what type of business you have.
That's right. I just tried that yesterday with the garden.
Okay.
Publications and websites.
You're looking hard, aren't you?
Yeah. I need employees next month.
It's spring. It's time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With
It's
green
time to
cards.
plant.
Definitely.
No, I
What
mean,
about?
Trump has made that an issue, right?
Oh.
So as
It's the
employers, we need to be extra careful on that kind
Yep.
of stuff.
What about poaching? Anybody ever poach?
Well, yeah, it's-
I'm a big poacher. I love.
Well, that's, okay, but that's looking for clients. I guess you do that with employees
no,
too?
that's competitors.
Okay.
So 50% of Pay Northwest, actually a little over about 60% of Pay Northwest, is all ex-paychecks.
Okay.
The problem is we've run out of people we know because we took all the good ones. That has double benefit for me because then I get all of the unhappy clients at Paychecks calling me saying, you know, Paycheck service has really gone down. And I say, oh, you know why? Because Gabby and Mike are both here now. Oh, I can be with Mike? Absolutely. Anyway, I digress. But poaching is a good source,
Mike
right?
switched over?
What's that?
Mike switched over?
No, not girls.
Not Mike.
Different Mike.
Mike.
Different Mike.
Mike, not Mike.
Not Mike.
Okay.
Mike. Yeah.
It's Michael.
Anyway, think about construction. So if I was a framer right now, hard to find framers, right? Hard to find anybody in the trades, but hard to find framers.
Skilled ones anyways.
Exactly. So if I'm a framer and I'm on a job and there's another job 2 blocks over, I'm watching those other framers.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to spot the good one. And I want to catch that guy afterwards and say, hey, see that you did quite a bit of work yesterday.
Yeah.
What are you making? Right? It's a war.
It
It's a
is.
battle. And that doesn't always lead to the most engaged employees, but it can be a good source. Recruiters,
Yes.
right? That's an option.
It's,
Maybe not so much in some segments as others, but it deserves to be on the list, I think.
My wife would thank you.
And kind of as a subset of recruiters, and this might be interesting to you,
Temps.
temp to hire.
Oh, okay.
So you can bring somebody in from an agency, right? They're on the agency's payroll. You probably pay a little bit of a premium for them. Maybe you normally pay, I don't know, $13 an hour, and when you get them through the agency, you have to pay $16 an hour or $17 an hour. But it's purely variable cost. And you can say, yeah, that one didn't work out. Don't send me that guy again. Or, hey, that one was good. Send them back next week.
Yeah, and clone them.
And then, and send me more just like that. And then you can have an agreement with your agency to say, man, after such and such period of time, I can bring them on at no charge, or I can bring them on at this fee. That's what they're there for.
Yeah.
Anything else on how to find that we
What
didn't think about?
about colleges? Colleges or high schools?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I didn't even have that on my list.
Especially for what time?
Yeah.
And summer.
Yeah. It's summertime. 2
Yeah.
months. Good.
Yeah, we don't really want you after that.
Great.
But we'd love for you to come back next summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. Anything else? Any other sources of candidates? This is
Put out
a
a
small
sign.
one, but
Put out a sign.
that's exactly what I
Oh,
wanted
that's
down.
We did that. Trying to think, how else have we attracted people?
Oh, and then there actually this kind of comes up here as a subset. Radio. Depending on what you're looking for and where you're looking, radio can be a good market still. I used to recruit for the fishing company where I was HR director, And some would occasionally buy a radio spot in Yakima on the Spanish language radio station.
Oh yeah, my painter friend does the same thing.
Yeah. That was before I built my own recruiting pipeline directly out of Central Mexico. Yeah, that was slick. We were bringing 300 to 400 people a year directly out of Central Mexico. It was a great plan, great program. Okay, so how to pick them? Scott, you said interview, right?
Mhm.
We start with the application first.
Oh, do you use an actual application form?
Yeah, I
Good.
should fill it out.
Good for you.
Use the hard facts to start with.
I think applications are important for a couple of things. They can hand you your resume.
Yeah.
And if the resume is accurate, it'll have a lot of the same information. But the application itself is a test if they can follow instructions, right? Can they read this and fill it out like
Yeah.
I wanted to? Also, you typically have some kind of an at-will acknowledgement built into your application somewhere, which is really important to have. A nice I dot and T cross. And it certainly encourages full disclosure. What else? How else do you pick them? About
Skills that, well, like you said, when you poach them, you're watching their skills.
yeah, but you could have a skills test,
That's true.
right? So I'm going to put that on. I was talking to a prospective client the other day. Interesting group. So they're a relatively small company. They're window washers, but they're the technical window washers. So these are the folks that hang upside down from the side of the Seattle Public Library 150 feet off the ground, cleaning underneath that overhang.
Holy cow.
Yeah, so they're fascinating. They have their office, quote unquote, it's a very small, very quaint little office, but they have a little warehouse space. And in the warehouse, they actually have pulleys and stuff rigged up to the ceilings, and they test them.
I've got a client who, they're handyman type work, and they have a 2-hour test that they have to take for skills, so they understand what skills they have,
Mm-hmm.
and then another 2-hour interview and talking about how to do things.
Nice. Nice.
Personality profiles.
Good. Good. Let's call those individual assessments, because there's a wide variety, right? There's things that measure personality. There's, Myers-Briggs, DISC, 96 other kinds. But let's just put those under
Big 5 workplace survey. That's my favorite.
individual assessments.
It is.
And for some roles, those are super important.
97 to 98% reliability to that test. Nothing else comes close.
Nice.
What's the name of it?
It's the hokeyest name. Big 5 workplace survey. And yet it is the most revealing.
Big 5, that's the sporting goods.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Big 5 workplace survey.
Place.
I cannot think of a hokier sounding name, but I know a lot of consultants. I like to take their testing
Mm-hmm.
so that I know what they're doing and what tools they use. And I've taken all of Myers-Briggs, Tilt, DISC, et cetera, et cetera. There's value surveys, strength finder surveys, and that one shocked me to the core of my being.
Wow.
Yeah, it literally took weeks for me to recover. I'm not
Learned way
exaggerating.
too much about yourself.
Found your true self.
And I came home and told my wife and daughter, well, this says this about me. And they went, oh, yeah. I'm like, oh.
But testing like that, it doesn't even have to be that big a deal. So paychecks, I don't mean to keep using them as an example, but they're famous for using a math test on their hiring procedure, on their hiring process. And they do it for everyone, and it kind of makes sense because they're a payroll company.
Yeah.
But it's about a 50-question math test, and supposedly nobody ever finishes it. I've met a few people that finished it. But what they're really looking for, rather than purely the quantity of answers that you give, is how many wrong answers you give. Right? How many did you guess and get it wrong? Rather than, hey, they answered 28 out of 32 is way less important than of the 28 answers they gave, only 17 were correct. which totally makes sense in a payroll environment.
Mm-hmm.
But there can be different kinds of things like that. And again, what we're really trying to get to is getting the right person in the right place, right? The right people on our bus, so to speak. I had a couple other things on there. Background checks.
Yeah.
Now that can be lots of different things. I mean, you can run a background check on someone, presumably as long as it's warranted, and do actually a credit check and those kinds of things. Or maybe that just refers to something as simple as calling the last person they worked for and verifying. I mean, depending on how you do it, legally, if they really want to stay inside the lines, the only thing they'll do is verify their dates of employment and their position. Maybe they'll confirm why they left or not, maybe not. But I find that if you can get folks on the phone and you get a little bit folksy with them and you just ask them a couple of questions, most of them will answer you.
You can get around HR and go right to the actual supervisor.
Yeah. Yep.
More companies are doing social media checks.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. Now, one thing, I always do that, right? Or always did it when I was in that role, but I never told them.
Yeah.
And in fact, I needed a rule never to tell a candidate why I wasn't hired. I always just said, you know, we've decided to go with another candidate. Really appreciate it. We'll keep your information on file. If anything comes up, we'll get back to you. We're going with another candidate. We don't know who it is yet, but it ain't you. Or something. Right? But I don't like to argue with people. And I don't like to have fights. And I don't like to, create cannon fodder for them to shoot at.
Come back at you. Yeah.
But this is great, yeah. Go on Facebook, see what they put on Facebook. That'll tell you a lot. Yeah, I had one candidate who turned out had a side job as a surrogate. I wasn't sure that was appropriate for someone who was going to go on a boat to Alaska with 60 other people for 5 months. I was afraid that they would venture out into their surrogacy business and that would lead to problems among the crew. Drug testing, that's a good one. That's an interesting one. Especially now. And you can test for drugs but not marijuana, or you can say we disregard marijuana results, or however you want to approach that. But it doesn't mean you don't want to weed out the meth heads. They tend to be a little bit less reliable, I've found. Just personal experience.
It's good to know.
Yeah, it's amazing I managed to make it to the clutch meetings, isn't it? Anything else? Any other tools and how to pick them?
Out of a hat.
Random chance. They'll spin the wheel. Yeah, we try not to use that one. It's not very scientific. Okay, well that's a pretty good list.
Yeah.
So I'll put that one aside. We can add to it if we think of more. So does anyone agree or disagree with me that employees function better with responsibilities, understanding what their authority is, and having goals?
This is actually a point of conversation that I have with almost every CEO that I consult with, in helping them to try to understand that their primary role, the most important role they have in their organization, is to own the vision of the company. They don't necessarily even have to come up with it, but to own the vision of the company and then to communicate that so that everyone throughout the ranks of the organization buys in and understands how their role contributes to the group achieving that vision.
I like that.
That last piece is very often missing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, here's the vision, and here's what you do, but
Yeah.
how you connect those dots, well, who knows?
I like it. So employees need to understand.
So that employees understand their contribution toward achieving that vision.
So
How do I get involved?
this kind of implies a definition of role and responsibility.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you say,
There has to be guidelines.
okay,
People have to understand what they can and can't do, what their role is.
And why it matters.
Yeah.
Where's the most common place you find this, or could find this?
Job description.
Oh, bingo!
Isn't that part of the interview process?
I don't have a
too?
quarter, but here's,
Okay, thank you.
well,
Oh, you have
in
no
my view, job description goes all the way back to the very beginning,
Right.
before you start recruiting.
Notice how he's kind of hogging those things all at his end of the table.
You know, a few more questions.
It's okay, you're doing fine, don't worry. So, job description. And I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, because we could go really deep on this topic, and we could spend an hour and a half on it and barely scratch the surface. But I think there's parts of it that are too important not to have as a little bit of this discussion. So define roles and responsibilities. And I have my cheat notes all the way over here, of course.
You can move it to the table if you want.
I don't want to do that.
Then we can read upside
Read
down.
it.
If I move around, I stay a lot less nervous.
Got it. Are we making you nervous?
Always nervous.
I was gonna say, imagine if there were 100
Energy.
people.
That's not nervous, that's energy.
I turn into a pool of jello.
Five.
I find that hard to believe.
This is kind of part of roles and responsibilities, but I would break it out separately, just because it's worth it. Authorities. So what can people make decisions about and what can they not make decisions about? I think being very clear on that is pretty important.
So in other words, you were allowed to make the decision to take all those shoes to that customer.
Yeah.
Did you have that authority?
Yes, because he had the responsibility to satisfy that customer. That gives him the authority to do what is necessary.
That is what I chose to believe,
And that's what the company
which is why I
gave
did
you.
not ask permission.
That's what the company gave you.
Smart.
Well, security essentially gave it to me when they let me walk out the door with 60 pairs of shoes.
Right.
Yeah.
You did
Sorry,
come back.
you missed
right?
the story. So when I was working at Nordstrom, this was many years ago, I was over in Spokane managing the ladies' shoe floor, and a lady showed up to pick up her shoes for her daughter's wedding the next day, and they were dyeables, satin shoes that get dyed to match the dress, and my sales rep messed up the order. And so the lady stormed out and left and drove back to Richland, which is where she lived. And so I loaded up my car with every pair of shoes in her size that we had in the store, and drove to Richland and was there an hour behind her, let her pick out a pair of shoes and keep them. So we were talking about engaged employees. And at that particular moment in my life, I was actually engaged.
Wow.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That I was ever engaged.
Wow.
And what was your name?
And then
Sorry.
no discussion along these lines is complete without talking about goals.
Goals, absolutely. And strategies.
Smart. Right? Should we review SMART goals? Specific, measurable,
Actionable.
actionable, achievable,
Well, that goes with the realistic.
allocable. There's the A goes lots of different directions.
Yeah.
The R can be realistic, and T is with a tracking mechanism, or some people refer to as being time bound. But if you can't, my easy explanation of goals is, if you can't put up a graph and tell me what percentage of the goal is done, then your goal is not written correctly. And it might be 0 or 100, it could be a binary, but you need to be able to tell me. And it needs to, so you gotta be able to back up objectively. And it has to fit within this context, right? It's gotta be within my areas of responsibility. What about in terms of other things? So this is all, this is really management 101 kind of stuff, right? What about in terms of the communication management piece? Green, I want to use purple. I'm a husky. 2 times, although for a really long time, as we know. No, 23. Thank you very much. 1981 to 2004. We talked about the one thing that would surprise people about us. So mine was, I probably hold the record for the longest period of time to get an undergraduate degree at the University of Washington. Started in 81, got it in 2004, so 23 years.
You beat me.
Yes, that was my goal. Let's talk about organizational practices that stimulate engagement. So I'll give you a couple examples to get us started, right? How about open door policy.
Oh, I hate that one.
Do you hate that one? Why do you hate that one?
Well, it's just me, and I hate leaving the door open.
Ta-dum-bum.
That's funny.
Thank you.
But you have an open door policy.
I do.
You had a client who felt your door was very open to give you feedback on someone that you referred to them. This is kind of a basic thing, but do you have one and do you use it? And is it done well? Your handbook. Handbook can be a tremendous tool for educating people, for giving them culture, for building that engagement, understanding the organization.
I got one for you. War stories.
War stories. Ooh, yeah.
No better way to communicate the values of the company than to tell war stories.
War stories.
What about if there's a book written about the company?
I just stretched that out and said company history.
Okay.
Knowing the history, where that comes from. That's really good. What about coaching and mentoring? Right? When you bring somebody in, do you coach them? Or do you just say, hey, I hired you to do this job, do this job?
Have fun and guess. No.
Yeah, exactly. I was blessed when I was in the fishing business for about 3 years. I reported directly to the CEO. His name was Terry Gardner. And he was a wonderful coach and mentor. Better, much better than I realized at the time. He was giving me books to read, and I didn't understand why he was giving them to me. Things like Edward de Bono. You guys ever read Edward de Bono? I knew you would. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what that means.
Because you're a smart man.
Oh, there you go.
Edward de Bono wrote these great books on tactics and strategy and things. And I didn't realize I was being coached and mentored at the time.
And groomed.
But I was. And as I came to realize that, I realized he cared, and that kind of furthers engagement as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
What else along these lines? You ever have employees get together, do events? Okay, I'm going to give that a fancier title. I'm going to call it team building. But team building has lots of different forms. I've done some, have you ever done those survival exercises where you go divide into small groups and then you get a list of materials that you have on hand and then you collectively decide as a group how to, first you decide as an individual how you're going to survive. So one of them, and I should explain this better. So one of them is a helicopter crash in the Cascades. So you're in a helicopter, you've crashed, you have these 17 items. We'll rank the items in order of importance for your survival. And so you go through that and do it on your own. And then you divide up into small groups.
Better helicopter.
And you do it as a group. That's not on the list,
Oh.
but it should be. Anyway, but then you do it as a group. And the theory is that never, ever, ever should the group ranking be worse than the average of the individuals. Because as a group, you should always have better thinking, always better dynamics. But what's interesting is that is not always how it plays out. Sometimes you get a dominant individual who takes over a group and leads them down the wrong path.
It's like a focus group.
Exactly. But that's an example of a team building exercise. I've done that one a few times. It's a lot of fun. We did one once that was a fire in the Australian outback. And one of the engineers took the group completely down the wrong path because he was absolutely convinced that starting a backfire was the way to go. So his most important item was the can of gasoline. You're in a fire. Anyway, but team building can be lots of things, right? So going to a football game, or having a picnic, or just having everybody, end of the day, it's Friday afternoon, you put a 6-pack out in the garage.
Yeah, we go to sushi happy hour once a month.
There you go, same thing, exactly. Beautiful.
I went to a client a couple of days ago, and it's a small manufacturing company, and he's got a keg of beer. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They make heat exchangers, and one of their major client segments are breweries. And what they are doing is they are creating a
Indoor pub?
they are creating a micro brewery in their back closet, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I'm like, wow, that's kind of awesome. And you're going to use that as kind of a sales thing because you're showing off your heat exchanger and that. And he's like, no, just kind of.
No, it's just for fun. That's funny. I think you were going to say he's stimulating demand by creating alcoholics. But that's good. I like that. Other things along these lines, and I'll go kind of fast here and then we'll take a little short break. Call it what you want, evaluations, annual reviews.
Performance reviews, that's good. Performance feedback.
I'm just going to call it performance feedback. Lots of people call it lots of different things. Again, if you're going to do this, obviously it needs to tie back to this.
I don't know if this falls in there or not, but the two best bosses I ever had one characteristic in common, and that was at the end of the day, they made a point when I was leaving to go home of saying, "Good job today, Pete. Appreciate all you do."
All right, deserves a special mention.
Good job.
Yeah.
Simple thank yous.
Yeah.
Don't
How
underestimate the
motivated
power of
it
those. And then this is one more that most people don't think of in this context.
Benefits.
Benefit.
Bonus.
Enrollment / explanation. Lots of people go to the trouble and the expense of offering benefits to employees. Very few people take the additional step of truly explaining to the employee and working with the employee to figure out how to make maximum use of those benefits.
They usually don't give you what it's costing the company for those benefits, so the employee can have an appreciation of, what he is saving.
Item number 9. Thank you, Scott. If I had a quarter, I'd give it to you.
Boy, I'd be up 50 cents by now.
You would. Total compensation, I'm just going to say display.
Or value. Sorry.
Value. I would say those are kind of interchangeable in that context.
No, I was saying total compensation value
Okay.
instead of display.
We're good.
Yeah, it's just a question of how you show it.
Yeah.
But being able to show that, very powerful.
What about transparency? So along that vein, I guess, the transparency. So transparency, not only in so transparency in terms of how the company is doing, or transparency in terms of how decisions are being made,
Okay?
or just basically telling people what's going on and why it's going on.
That's a good one. That raises interesting questions. Do you want your employees to know your gross revenue?
Why wouldn't you?
Some people would say it's not good because the employees don't truly understand all the underlying costs and think I'm getting rich off them. Because I happen to have a $2 million gross, but they don't know that I have a $1.5 million nut to keep. So, do you go full disclosure, do you not? This is a good question, and it's a great point. And it ties somewhat back to the open door thing just a little bit.
And part of that is how you fit in the company's goals.
Right?
Goes back to also that.
And
part
what
of
your
it.
goals are, which goes back to what your defined roles and responsibilities are.
Right.
So, here's an example from my present life where I was very unengaged. So obviously my role at Pay Northwest is increase revenue. So my job is to find prospective clients who might be a good fit for us, find out if they are, and then see if we want to work together. The more I sell, the more I get paid, obviously. Very common, and we're going to talk more about pay in a minute. There's one particular, so we have some rules about companies that we will and won't work with. So we don't work with any companies in anything to do with the adult entertainment business, for instance. But we are not afraid of legal marijuana companies. There are very few other payroll companies doing work with legal marijuana companies. I found a place where I could advertise in a magazine that goes to 75% of the investors in legal marijuana companies in the state of Washington for a mere $500.
Wow.
And I was like, Mike's my boss. I said, Mike, I want to run this ad. And he looks at me and he says, nah, we're not going to do that. And that's all he said. No why, no thinking, no nothing. Here I've got this role and this responsibility, and placing a $500 ad is outside my realm of authority.
I don't teach you that.
So I went to get permission, and now I've got this incongruity, right? You told me to do this. I've got a great way to do it. This is incredibly cheap, but you're saying no. Now all of a sudden I'm disengaging. So that comes to your transparency as well. Maybe if you were taking the time to explain to me more, I might not have been so disengaged about it. And of course I get over it. Obviously a guy gets over everything. But an interesting note, right? These are good. So let's talk about, for this I need green ink, rewarding employees. That's the fun part, right?
It's good
Depends
to
on the
see a
ca-
smile on their face.
It depends on the cash flow or not.
Yeah.
So let's talk about compensation that is money.
Bonus, commission,
Oh,
that kind of thing.
you're getting that. Yeah, let's get to that. So let's say
Wages.
one, wages.
Yes.
Might be salary, might be hourly. But it's pay. This is what I get for being here. Now, let's start on the list of others, because the others are where it gets fun.
Yeah, the commission, the bonus.
Oh, commission, good.
Yeah, on the wages, that could also be piecework.
Oh. Good point, Peter. Those elves in your basement.
Yeah, I did that. I lasted 2 weeks. My first job was doing piecework.
Piecework almost falls into the commission bucket. Almost. But it's subject to minimums and guarantees and things, so it kind of doesn't. But it's a little bit the same thing. Bonus, let's talk about bonus. When you say bonus, what do you mean?
End of year bonus.
End of year.
or-
Reduce subsets.
Quarterly.
End of year. Ooh, quarterly.
I used to work for a company in the north central part of I was in the north central part of the country. And the bonus plan was based on the number of new intelligent controller cards we were able to sell into computer server manufacturers. Can you think of a single computer server manufacturer in the north central part of the country? So that was a wonderful exercise in demotivating the entire region.
A friend of mine went to work for Salesforce. His territory was Eastern Washington, North Idaho, and Montana. Eastern Washington, okay. Montana, really? You need Salesforce to keep track of your cows. Which ones you've massaged and which ones you haven't. So bonus, quarterly, I had ran into an interesting bonus. I've seen tons of this stuff, right? And I get a little jaded and sometimes I start to think I've seen it all. I'm talking, this is that same window company that I was talking about before. They have a thing called bonus hours. And when somebody does something cool, random, whether it's for a client or another employee, somebody on the management team can say, hey, that was awesome, I'm gonna give you 2 bonus hours. And they just pay them for 2 hours. It's kind of cool because it's not hours worked, so you don't pay L&I on it, right? So it's dollar for dollar kind of stuff. It's still
Didn't know you could do that.
taxable earnings. Oh, sure you can. You can do anything. Now, if you start to get discriminatory
thanks.
about how you do it, then you have problems.
Okay.
If you give bonus hours to all the Italians and none to the non-Italians, okay, that's problematic.
Why? Oh, okay.
The Sicilians will come after you.
That's right. It's a mafia thing. Sorry, I'm probably going to get an email tomorrow about my inappropriate comment, right?
Oh yeah, let me write
And then
that one
explain
down.
But I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
And it's really cheap. And that reminds me of another thing I want to add to this. Organizational practices. Employee recognition within team. So we started a new thing last year. We call them the high five cards. So when you see somebody do something awesome for you as a fellow employee, or for a client that's a little bit out of the norm, or whatever random thing, we have these little high five cards. You pull out a high five card, you fill it out, you hang it up over their desk.
My son has that as a school.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a way, and it's a silly little thing, and it costs you nothing, but I've got 6 of them hanging up in my cube, and I'm proud of them. Well, okay, I'm proud of 5 of them. There's one that's kind of tongue-in-cheek that I'm not particularly proud of. But anyway,
My
so,
first job out of college was for a chain of jewelry stores, a very rapidly growing chain of jewelry stores, and they were unique in the country in the way they approached the marketplace. One of the things that made them unique is there were no commission, it was non-commission sales. And they genuinely wanted their people to satisfy, to take care of that customer, not to just make a sale. And so how do you motivate people that are on commission, right? So we used to just, we would get point of sale things, and on every Saturday morning, we'd have a group meeting, and one of the things I'd go over is what people's total sales were for that week. And it was to create and stimulate competition, but not to overstimulate the competition to the point that they were just trying to close sales with customers and not really concerned about the customers. So it was a balancing way of trying to accomplish that.
that's good.
It's
Yeah,
fun.
that is fun. Here's
Some
another
of
one.
our part-timers outsold some of my full-timers.
Mm.
You think of that way, the full-timers,
Well, it's embarrassing because, the part-timers are selling the nickel and dime stuff.
Uh-huh.
That stuff adds up. You get somebody that can sell earrings and necklaces and watches quickly and close on them quickly.
Oh.
And, you're used to spending hours with a diamond sale, or you've got somebody over there at the jewelry case cranking this stuff out. But it's interesting. And
Yeah.
you don't get that until you sit and, you share those numbers.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Yeah, I sold books for the Southwestern Company one summer. It was a disaster, but I survived. I stuck out the year. But yeah, we had those weekly sales meetings. I was always at the bottom. Brutal. Spiffs. Have you ever heard of a spiff?
Yep. Used to sell shoes, and if you sold 2 pairs to somebody, you got a spiff.
Yep. Spiff is a couple of bucks, or it's a reward for
tie-in.
specific behavior.
Yeah.
You could do a spiff for, we'll give you a $10 spiff for every plant that you replace, where you put in, where we sell a new plant to a client. Now, I don't know if that gets the right behavior, but it's just a theoretical example.
If someone's buying 10 plants, you're able to sell them 20 plants.
Yeah.
So it's that added spiff.
Or
Okay.
if you
Doubling
do
the order.
doorknob hangers for every customer that came from hanging those doorknobs.
Ooh, that's a good one. Nice, Peter. You've been in the pizza business, haven't you? I knew you were moonlighting.
You know where I got that one? I watched the roofers. You know how in an old neighborhood,
Oh, yeah.
they'll just come in and it's like the whole neighborhood gets a new roof within a year or two.
Yeah.
That's just the age of the roof,
Yeah.
right? And I watched those roofers come in and put their doorknob hangers.
That's good. No, I saw
Yeah.
Domino's doing that, I think, last year.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, they've been doing that for years.
Have they?
Oh, you're right. The pizza companies do
Yeah.
it all the time.
It works.
Yeah.
That's a great little market.
Especially when they do it around Super Bowl time and NC2A playoffs and the timing.
I asked one of the not the roofing guy, but a different kind of contractor. He's actually underground sprinkler contractor.
Flyers and cars.
You know, what's the secret of his success? And he says, when we're out giving an estimate for something, I knock on the doors on either side. And he says, we're out here doing an estimate for these folks, and happy to do one for you too. I notice you don't have a sprinkler system. Would you like a free estimate?
Why
He
not?
says, I'm already in the neighborhood. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And even if you only get a 50% uptake ratio on the resumes, or on the estimates, and then a 25% closing rate on those, you're still increasing your revenue by 15%. Pretty easy. That's pretty good.
I know his numbers were higher than that.
This isn't something that's going to apply to everyone, but it's something that's worth a discussion. And that's deferred compensation. So this can be as simple as an agreement between you and a key employee to say, if you stay here 3 years, Peter, I will give you $5,000. Okay, make it meaningful to you. If you stay here 3 years, I'll give you $15,000. Now, when you look at that as a business owner, you think, well, that's $5,000 a year. It's a pretty substantial increase, but boy, he's a good guy. He's generating a lot of revenue. If he would do that, it would be worth it. But here's what the employee sees. So from the employee's chair, I'm sitting over here. I've just gotten this agreement. We just drew up a simple little agreement, had our lawyer review it, of course. And I think, all right, if I stay here for 3 years, I get 15 grand. Well, that's cool. A year later, it's not like, well, I've earned 5,000 of it. It's just, okay, now I stay here 2 years, I get 15 grand. And a year after that, in their mind,
It's 1 year.
I stay 1 more year and I get 15 grand. So you get this increasing power of leverage.
Isn't it like stock options? We're gonna give you stock options and
Options are a
as long
little
as you're
different.
here, but isn't that still the same type of?
With an option, so the way an option works, you get granted the right to buy stock at a set price,
Right.
called a strike price. And so it has to be a publicly traded stock, obviously. So I got stock options at Paychecks, and I was there 8 years, and for 7 years, 51 weeks, my options were underwater. The stock price was always lower than my strike price. 2 days before I quit, they floated, and I executed. I got a nice little $1,000 kiss as I gave my notice. It was kind of fun. Obviously, that's not what stock options are really for. Stock options, it's a publicly traded company environment.
So that's another example of demotivated because they didn't adjust their
Yeah, they
price.
never reset the strike
They didn't
price.
care enough to do
New
that.
options that I got didn't have a lower strike price. Yeah, exactly. That's good. That's unengaging, right? What you can do in a smaller business, you can do things like stock appreciation rights, SARs, or phantom stock. So I'm going to give you 10 phantom shares in my company. You're not going to get to vote. You don't actually own anything, but you will get the same dividends that a holder of shares gets. You'll get the same dividends per share that I pay myself. So you can do that. You can do simple things that are even simpler than that, like, hey, for every, we're going to put in 10% of new revenue. So based on our revenue growth this year over last year, we're going to take 10% of that revenue growth and we're going to put it in a bonus pool. And we're going to divvy that out somehow. And you can have different mechanisms to divvy it out. You can use it different ways.
So along that compensation line, one of the things that I've seen in companies over the years is they focus on what motivates people. And they don't seem to understand that as significantly and oftentimes more so, it's what demotivates people. So in the in the 60s, there was a study that was done, a gender-based study that was done on compensation. And it was found that, generally speaking, an increase in cash was more motivating to females than to males. But a reduction in compensation was far more demotivating to males than to females. And people put together entire pay strategies based on that, which
Interesting.
it was interesting. It was horribly exercised in what they did to manipulate that, based on that information. But I think it is still generally true today when people look at that stuff. I am less motivated by an increase in compensation than opportunities for development and growth.
Well, and I agree. So with me, just making more money is not that big a deal. But winning is a big deal. I like to win. I don't like to lose. If I make more money, that's great.
Have you thought about taking up golf?
I have, and I've discovered it's the game I can never win at. So I love it. Because you can't ever win. It's a lifelong pursuit of an unattainable goal.
Much fun to stick at red hot pokers in your eyes.
No, sometimes better. You can also take this deferred comp all the way out to a full-blown Section 409 plan, which is a full deferred compensation plan where you give senior employees, and you can pick and choose. It's not like a regular benefit plan where it has to be the same for everybody. We could be a company right here, and Peter, you could decide that you're going to put 20% of your salary into the deferred compensation plan. That means you don't have to pay tax on it right now. It goes into a fund, maybe it goes into life insurance. It still has to be subject to the general creditors of the business. Otherwise, you've constructively received it and you get taxed on it. But there's some options there. And then you can have company contributions that go in as well. And they can be random, right? They don't have to be equal. They don't have to be the same percentage of pay for everyone. In these 409 plans, also called top hat plans, you can kind of do almost whatever you want. And you get out to that level, you should work with a professional in doing it.
You've also got retirement plans.
Yeah, we're going to come to that.
Okay.
We're going to come to that next. We're going to talk about traditional benefits in just a moment. One more thing I want to say on this. Oh man, 10 minutes, not much time. Okay. You always want to make sure you're in the ballpark on what you're paying folks, right? So compensation surveys is one tool to do that. You can do lots of different kinds of compensation surveys. You can ask the businesses on either side of you what they're paying their employees. That's a compensation survey in a way. There's lots of organizationals. Horticultural's probably got some compensation data that can be available to you as a member.
Yeah, trade journals are often, or
Trade journal.
trade organizations. Also American Compensation Association down in
Yeah,
Scottsdale.
yeah. Washington Employers, now Archbright, another good source of data. So lots of things there. I'm going to let's bang through traditional benefits kind of fast. Because it's the non-traditional, so it's where the fun's going to be. So traditional bennies. Some of these things are kind of hygiene factors, right? And everybody's familiar with, that's not Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What's the hygiene factors versus?
No,
Okay.
I don't know what book you've been reading.
I'll send it to you when I remember. Anyway, so
I have a hierarchy of needs. What hierarchy are you
No,
talking
you're
about?
talking about
well,
hygiene.
Maslow's hierarchy of
Looking for
needs, but then
another
there's
model.
the theory that some things are hygiene factors, some things are necessary for survival, and some things are what are referred to as hygiene factors. And then there's another layer up, which is more fulfillment factors.
That is Maslow.
That is
Is that Maslow?
That's Maslow.
Security
Okay.
needs, safety needs,
Yeah.
and it gets up to self-actualization.
Yeah, but there's a different one that actually refers to hygiene factors. I'm
Okay.
just making up that term.
You're making
Anyway,
it up.
same concept.
Yeah.
So traditional bennies, we think of medical, dental, right? And there can be other things go along with that. Retirement plans, another good one. Retirement plans is one that's sometimes not fully understood and not leveraged like it could be. Here's a great retirement plan example. So I knew this guy, and he ran a Burger King up in Marysville. Big Burger King, always staffed by high school students. He was the only guy that worked, the only adult, well, no, I take it back. He had two managers that were also adults. They were in their 30s. And this guy was in his 50s. And he had no retirement plan in place. The ideal characteristic for him, for a successful employee, was somebody who started as a freshman in high school when they turned 15 and were legal to work, and stayed with him all the way through high school. So he got 3 years out of that employee. So I put this idea on the table to him. I said, you can do something special with a 401k plan. You can set up a 401k and you do a match. You do a dollar for dollar match to 4% of pay. None of your high school kids are going to contribute. You and your two managers are going to be the only people that put their own money into the plan in all likelihood. Then there's an additional way to fund a 401k plan through profit sharing. You do profit sharing into the plan and you use a 3-year cliff vesting, which means that the employees who receive profit share dollars into their accounts don't actually own any of those dollars until they've been employed for 3 years. This was the ideal profile, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I quit at 2.5 years, the money that was in my account from profit sharing goes into a forfeiture pool. The forfeiture pool can be used to pay for the expenses of the plan, or it can be reallocated to the people that are still in the plan. And the way it gets reallocated is based on earnings. Who makes the most money?
The owner.
The owner was pulling a salary of 90 grand out of the company, right? The two managers were making about 40 each. The rank and file, you know, if they made $6,000 or $7,000, they were right up in the upper third. So he had this giant, it was this giant funnel where all that money was going to end up in the owner's pocket, tax deferred. It's huge.
Brilliant.
Really, he didn't go for it. It's too complicated for him. Either that or I just didn't explain it very well. Anyway, retirement plans, working with the right professional that knows them, can be huge.
Maybe there was too much temptation for him or her to fire the people just before their 3rd-year anniversary.
Well, there's that too. There's that too. But I couldn't help but think it would be tremendously rewarding for him because he's able to provide this work experience to these young people and give them an opportunity where all of a sudden, like magic, when they were ready to move on to the next stage in their lives, they had $2,000 or $3,000 saved up.
We never knew it was there.
And they never knew it was there,
Yeah.
right? It's just like, oh. And now I've got money, I can go get an apartment. I can get clothes, I can get tools. I can go off to college. But only if they made it that full 3 years, if they met that hurdle.
Well, there'd be tax consequences to cashing out those long-term dollars.
But even
Oh,
if they
sure, there is,
carry
but
it over.
when you're 18 years old and you've got very little income, your tax consequences are pretty small.
True.
Yeah. Time offs. So lots of different ways to do time off, right? Some people have vacation time, sick time, personal time, bereavement time, jury time. Some people just work all the time.
It's all myths as far as I can tell.
I personally am a big fan of PTO in one bucket. All your paid time off in one thing, use it how you want. I'm a big fan of that because I don't get sick. I quit drinking 9 years ago and I haven't been sick since. So why does my fellow sales rep Steve, who gets sick about 1 day every 2 months, we have the same salary, he gets this extra time off that I don't get. How is that fair? That's a demotivator, right? And then ancillary benefits. So generally the ancillaries refer to things that employees can buy. Think of Aflac, right? Aflac. I personally kind of prefer the Colonial products to the Aflac products, but they can be all good. Now some of them are not good. So intelligent shopping is important. But it's a great way to offer employees something that not all of them might need, but some of them might need. Anything else on traditional benefits?
Insurance?
What's that?
Insurance?
Well, I got medical dental.
Oh, sorry.
So let's, and you
And
can
life insurance
extrapolate
for-
that out into
The officers, yeah.
LTD, STD, that's short-term disability, Peter. Just to be clear.
Thanks.
So let's talk about non-traditional benefits. Now to me, this is really kind of where the rubber meets the road on employee engagement. So what are the things we can do, maybe that don't cost a lot of money, that might make a difference and help get our employees more engaged?
Like the professional development we talked about earlier.
Professional development, good. Education. Has anybody heard of an HRA? Health Reimbursement Account?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so there's these, and I put these under non-traditional just because they're a little bit different. So there's FSA, HSA, and HRA. 3 different types of accounts. They all work a little bit differently. Flexible spending, FSA, is a way to take money from your check, tax-free, so no income tax, no social security taxes. The back-end benefit for the business is when the employee doesn't pay 7.65% social security, neither does the employer. So this gives employees a way to set aside money, pre-tax from their check, to pay for qualified medical expenses and for dependent care expenses. An HSA, the wrinkle to the FSA, it can be employee and employer funded, but it's a use it or lose it year-by-year program. So if you put money in that thing, you got to spend it. It's not for what ifs. It's for expenses that you're definitely going to incur. But it can be a huge savings. Employees can put $5,000 in for dependent care. So that saves, income tax plus Social Security for them. So in order to have $5,000 to pay my daycare on an after-tax basis, it probably takes about $6,500 of my earnings. Whereas if it comes off the top, it takes $5,000 of my earnings.
Big savings.
Big savings. Save about $1,500. Generally, depending on the tax bracket of the employee and how many kids they have, oftentimes the FSA is better than claiming the dependent tax credit on your tax return. So that's a good one. Health savings account. Health savings account kind of works the same way. It's a way to set aside money from your check tax-free for qualified medical expenses only, but you have to be on a high deductible health plan. But the beauty of the HSA is it rolls over from year to year, and as long as you use the money from that account on medical expenses, you never pay taxes on it. If you do use it for something else somewhere down the road, then you pay income tax plus a small penalty. But this money rolls from year to year forever and grows like another retirement account. So you can start this HSA, especially, you know, if you're young, if you're in your 30s or something, you start one of these HSAs and get it compounding. That's a big deal. And you just never touch that money. And then when you're 80, you've got this nice nest egg for medical expenses. And then HRA, now that's a little bit different. That's a health reimbursement account. That is an employer-funded vehicle only. Employees don't put money in. But it is a way for small business owners to reimburse employees for a portion of their medical insurance premiums. So for small businesses that can't afford to do full-blown health insurance for their employees, because it's expensive, we can say, okay, if you get insurance, and it's the right kind of insurance, you have to have insurance that covers essential benefits and these kinds of things. So you should talk to somebody to work out the details on how that works. But you can set a budget and say, for all of our full-time employees, people who work more than 35 hours a week, we're going to reimburse you up to $200 a month to cover the cost of your health insurance. Or $100 a month. Or $300 a month. You set the limit. So you've got this defined budget. And you give that to them completely tax-free. So if you're giving me $200, it costs you $200 to give it to me. Not $215 because you had to pay the Social Security taxes too. And I get $200 from it, not $150 because I paid my Social Security taxes and income tax. So it's straight across, very powerful. Other non-traditional types of benefits. I mentioned this in the flyer. I'm going to start going really fast. And if anybody needs to go, I'll completely understand. Anybody heard of Section 132? These are commuter benefits. So if you have employees that have to pay for parking when they come to work, you can set it up so they pay for at least a good chunk of that parking with pre-tax rather than post-tax dollars. It can also be used for transit passes, ferry trips, light rail. All of your commuter expenses can be run under Section 132. It works just like a 125, which is an FSA, where all the money is completely pre-tax. Again, you're taking small gains, right? For the employee, it saves them, if my bus pass is $100 a month, well, I've got to make $130 to pay my $100. But if I'm under a 132 plan, I only got to make $100 to pay my $100. So it only takes 10 hours of my labor instead of 13 hours of my labor.
So can that be, one of the issues that we have here in the Valley is affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
And the employees here in the area can't afford to live here in the area. So they're all coming in from
Auburn.
less expensive
Kent.
places. Yeah. Can this be used in that to reimburse them for their transportation costs?
So costs of parking, common transport, so like buses, yes.
But not their vehicles.
Not their vehicles, not mileage.
Okay.
But this is a big one for businesses that are in downtown Seattle or in Bellevue, where you're paying, $200 a month to park. Why not pay it pre-tax instead of post-tax? Employee discounts. If you're providing a service or a product that your employees can use, you can give them a little discount. Helps keep them a user of your product. An employee who uses what you do is more likely to be engaged, right? Because they can tell the customer, oh yeah, no, I had that chicken almond bean last night. It was awesome. You got to try that. Which is a lot different than, either of the specials is good. That was one of our engagement discussions.
So that was not the motivator for being in the women's shoe department.
No, it was not. Although there was a day.
That.
We had a promotion when Easy Spirit shoes first came out. There was a big promotion about how comfortable they were.
Yeah.
I wore a pair of Easy Spirit 1.5-inch pumps on the floor all day one day. Don't tell everyone that, because not everyone needs to know.
We will not tell anybody for a small monthly stipend.
Wellness,
Communication.
another good one. So we just started a new program this year. Everybody got Fitbits, and they're collectively monitored for steps. And if you hit a certain amount of steps for the month, you get $50.
That's a
Cool.
cool one. I like that.
$50, right? It could be $20. It could be $10. The amount of the dollars is a lot less important than winning, at least the way my brain works.
Yeah.
And the huge benefits out of wellness, I mean, we know, right? Less absenteeism, less tardy, better health, lower insurance costs, all these things right together.
Does that also include payment towards gym?
Could, although that's likely to be a taxable reimbursement,
Okay.
but you absolutely can do a gym reimbursement through a wellness program.
Can you do it through any of the FSA, HSA, HRA?
Generally, no.
Okay.
No.
Good question.
Excellent question. What else did I have in there? Oh, this is one that we're starting to hear a lot more about, and then I'm going to wrap up. Student loan assistance. If you read the trade rags and you see what's going on out there, it's becoming more common in some of these bigger companies, especially the ones that do a lot of college recruiting, to offer some kind of a student loan package. Whether it's an annual payment towards principal or something, you could combine a student loan program with a deferred comp program. And say every 3 years that you're here, we're going to pay $5,000 towards the principal on your student loan. Or $2,000, or $1,000, whatever your numbers are. But there's ways to do that. And people, I read the stats on the amount of debt that people are carrying coming out of college. It's staggering. Just staggering.
6 figures plus.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for undergraduate degrees in psychology and sociology. I should be careful. I'll get chastised for lambasting psychology and sociology. As an economics major, I have
No,
to.
I don't think they'll get lambasted, but they will try to understand why you feel that way.
Good. I'm going to leave one last thing here, and then I'm done. I'm going to say silly little reward programs. That bonus hour thing, that kind of falls under the silly little reward programs, because it's like, you know, if I make $12 an hour, you give me a bonus hour, it's $12. It's $12. I'll bend over to pick up $12, at least for a couple more years. Eventually I'm going to hit the point where I won't pick up any money if it doesn't cover the copay for my chiropractor. But little reward programs that are tied back to job descriptions, responsibilities, company success. One of the things I was thinking about, books on tape. So my friend Terry, who gave me the Edward de Bono Tactics book, right, trying to mentor me and coach me. If I've got an employee here, and I know she commutes from Bothell, right, got quite a commute. What if I give her a book on tape, and maybe it's something of an educational business type
Rosetta
nature?
Stone CDs.
Rosetta Stone. Maybe she's expressed an interest in, you know, I'd really like to help take us international, and I really want to see, I would really like to market our product in France.
We?
If I don't speak French. Here's a Rosetta Stone book on tape, CD, whatever, to learn French. That might be a little extreme, but there's tons of good reading material and educational material out there. And under silly little reward programs, I mean, you've got different kind of events that you can do. Little contests, things like that. Just things that line up incentives. Being careful to watch for the demotivating things, like you talked about, Peter.
Mm-hmm.
And things that make sense. So one last Paychex example, and I'll be done. So one of the products Paychex has is a pay card, and we do the same thing. It's a loadable debit card that your employees that can't have bank accounts for whatever reason can put their pay on. Paychex wanted people to use more of these debit cards because they make money on the product. And so for their client servers, their payroll specialists who talk to clients about doing their payroll, They said, okay, all you guys, we're gonna put a spiff on debit cards. All you have to do is get the client to fill out the paperwork that authorizes debit cards to be offered to their employees, and we will pay you some money. The theory was, if the client did the paperwork, then the employees would magically start ordering the cards. Well, what happened was that a couple of really smart payroll specialists figured out, oh, I know how to do this. And they started calling clients and saying, you know, we aren't quite done with your account setup. We have one more form that you need to fill out. I know you've been with us a couple of years, but we've been audited, and this form is really important now. So please fill out this form and return it to me. One guy made $25,000. And no cards were ever issued
Oh my
for his
gosh.
accounts. Yeah, 25 grand he made. So when you're designing your silly little spiffs and things, just think everything through as carefully as you can.
Maybe you could be a bank and incentivize your clerks to open bank
Multiple accounts.
That'd be a great idea.
Yeah. I happen to be the holder of 2 Wells Fargo checking accounts.
Yeah.
One of them has $100 in
Did
it.
you know you opened them?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
I had multiple accounts open with Wells Fargo. Yeah.
Unbeknownst to you?
Yeah, went in and basically said, what the hell?
Oh, no, mine was knowing. Yeah. I was in the branch and the guy talked me into opening this extra account because if you ever go off direct deposit, they're going to charge you for this account, even though you've been a client for 40 years.
Actually, I did branch manager
Oh,
a
we've-
favor. He
we've-
needed one more to win a contest.
Yeah.
It's the end of the month. I said, okay, well, here, I'll put $100 in the account if you can win.
Yeah.
And we'll close it later.
We've kept you
Yeah,
past our
we've gone
due
past.
time, and I'm sorry for that, but
That's okay.
thank you so much.
Peter shut me up.
We hope this,
Thank you.
Well-
No, I thank you all for coming.
Yeah,
That was
well,
really
Jim,
fun.
Jim, this is one of the better ones. Thank
Good,
you very much.
good, excellent.
there's some
Like I said, I hope we
marketing
get,
guy.
you know, if we each get 3 or 4 nuggets that we can take away and go back and do something with, then that's made this day totally worthwhile.